What's up guys, LB Gamer here doing another video. So today we'll be taking a look at the $75 Samsung Galaxy S7 and see how it compares to a $750 Galaxy S10e. So let's get into the video. So right here with me I have two phones, the Galaxy S7 and the Galaxy S10e. The Galaxy S7 was released in 2016 and it was one of the best smartphones for the time. And the S10e, which was just released earlier this year, is also a very great budget option, even better than last year's iPhone XR. So first off, let's go over the specs. So the Galaxy S7 has an 8-core Exynos 8890 with 4GB of LPDDR4 RAM. We also have a 3000 mAh battery, which we will get into more detail later on. It also has a 5.1 Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. And for the cameras, it has a single 12 megapixel camera at the back and a 5 megapixel selfie shooter. You can pick this phone at 32, 64, and 128 gigabyte iterations. For its time, these specs are considered high-end, which still keeps up just fine in the budget section, which I'll get into later. The Galaxy S10e, on the other hand, also has an 8-core CPU, but it's a much more powerful Snapdragon 855 processor, clocked at 2.4 GHz, along with 6 GB of RAM. There's also a 3100 mAh lithium battery. We also have a bezel-less 2280 by 1080 resolution display, sized at 5.8 inches. For the cameras, it has two cameras at the back, a 16 megapixel ultra-wide camera and a 12 megapixel shooter. Additionally, we also have a 10 megapixel selfie shooter. You can pick this phone at 128 or 256 gigabyte capacities. So first off, let's look at the design. Both phones feature a glass front and back with a metal ring border. However, I noticed that the S7 has a stainless steel frame, while the S10 went for a more polished look. The S7's camera is separated from the LED flash, but the S10e's camera and flash are all bundled in one single glass frame. The S7 has a lot of bezel to it, with a fingerprint sensing home button. Back then, this design was considered standard, but as time passes by, it starts to look dated. But the Galaxy S10e has a beautiful bezel-less display with a hole punch cut on the top right corner. Holding these phones in the hand feel very similar and they're almost the same size. But for design, I'll have to give it to the S10e mainly because of the display, but the S7 still looks pretty nice all these years later. With displays, the S7 has a 1440p resolution display, and at 5.1 inches, it is easy to reach all four corners. It looks very colorful and vibrant, and the display is sharp. However, the S10e steps it up just a little bit, with better color accuracy, offering amazing picture quality. I also noticed that the display looks a little brighter on the S10e. However, the one small downgrade is the resolution. The S7 is at native 1440p, but the S10e is at 2280 by 1080, which means the S7 looks a little sharper, but you wouldn't notice the lower resolution too much. I do like the bezel-less display, however, which is why I picked the S10e over the Galaxy S7's display still, because I don't think the S10e's resolution is off-putting, and we mainly put our screens inches away from our faces, so you wouldn't really notice the pixels that much, so it's not a big deal. But I gotta admit though, for a $75 smartphone, the screen looks pretty dope despite it's not bezel-less. I mean, 1440p resolution, good color accuracy. What can you expect? This is amazing. With the cameras, the S7's shooter looks good with fairly accurate coloration, giving sharp 12 megapixel vibrant colors, but the S10e steps it up a notch. The camera has much better color accuracy and sharpness, and it has more options like the ultra-wide camera feature. And if you're getting into photography or vlogging, the S7 is a good place to start, although I'd recommend the S10e if you have a higher budget. The front camera also sees a huge bump in quality. The S7 front 5 megapixel camera looks a bit too blurry, with poorly detailed selfie quality shots. The S10e fixes the problem a little bit, even though it's not up to par with the high-end iPhone XS. It fixes the blur thanks to the 10 megapixel resolution, but it can look a bit too sharp at times, which can be a bit off-putting if you're doing your Snapchat, taking selfies for Instagram, or doing whatever. Shooting video is great between both phones. Both phones are capable of shooting 4K or 1080p videos, but the S10e has an advantage where it can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second, while the S7 can only shoot at 4K 30 frames per second, which looks a little less smooth than 60 FPS. Well, a lot less smooth actually, but still, lots of people shoot at 30 FPS, so I don't think it's a big deal. Although if you want more action-intensive scenes, then the S10E is the way to go if you want to shoot at 4K. However, the S7 and S10E are very similar at 1080p aside from the video quality difference. They can shoot at either 30 FPS or 60 FPS at the same resolution, which is 1080p. However, one thing the S7 somewhat struggles at though is battery life. Both batteries are nearly close in milliamps, with the S7 having a 3000 milliamp hour battery and the S10E having a 3100 milliamp hour battery. But used S7 batteries get degraded over time, and I know this varies from phone to phone, but it means that battery life gets worse. I only get around 4 to 5 hours of screen use with the S7. However, the S10E features excellent battery utilization, with it lasting anywhere between 9 to 12 hours. Gaming or watching YouTube can heat up the S7 really quickly, which is not a big deal. The S10E does that too, and I've seen a lot of iPhones and Android devices do that, so it's pretty normal if your device heats up. It just means your battery just slowly degrades, but it's not going to kill a phone entirely. The S7 has wireless charging and fast charging, which the S10E also has, but it expands on that. And the S10E has a feature where you can actually put your phone on another S10 and then share battery life between both smartphones. The S7 has a micro USB port, while the S10E has a far more advanced USB-C port, which means that if you are plugging in your charger to your phone, then the S10E will charge a lot quicker. And I can really notice the difference between an S7 and an S10E while charging. Now, the most important part are speeds. The S7 is decently fast for a 3-year-old phone, with apps loading fairly quickly thanks to the Exynos 8890 CPU, and it has decent multitasking capabilities thanks to the 4GB of RAM it offers. Scrolling through Instagram and sending photos on Snapchat feel decent, and I have no complaints here. However, the S10E has a massive boost in performance. The Snapdragon 855 processor is clearly faster. It is a newer CPU, so apps will load 1 second quicker, and there would be little to no lag with the animations. While the overall in-app experience already feels good on the S7, the S10E's performance is superb with buttery smooth animations and speeds. And you would really notice the difference if you put them side by side, but if you haven't used an S10E or newer phone like this, then it wouldn't be too off-putting. But still, the S10E reigns here, but considering that the S7 is a 3-year-old phone, I'll still give it a pass to the S7. On the software side, the S7 can run Android 8.0, which is still supported, and 95% of the apps are still supported with Android 8, and it still gets security updates, like the S10. With the S10E, however, it runs Android 9, which is soon gonna get Android 10. The operating system on the S7 isn't a big issue, as it is still supported by Google and other third-party app services. However, it won't last forever, so you have to keep that in mind if you're going for used smartphones, as their support will last a little shorter than the newer smartphones like the S10E, which will last much longer in support, so just keep that in mind. In conclusion, the $75 S7 really impressed me. If you're rocking one of these smartphones, it can still last you 1 to 2 years, and if you're on a really tight budget and you don't know what to buy, the S7 is a great place to start. And if you're coming from an old phone, like an iPhone 6 or a 5, the S7 is no doubt just fine. However, for those who have more money to spend and you want to be future-proofed for a few more years, I'd say the S10E is the better way to go, as it will give you much better app support and more features coming in the future with later releases. So guys, that wraps it up for this video. Do you guys have a Galaxy S7 or do you guys have an S10E? Which one would you guys buy? Because I think the S7 really is still a great budget option if you ask me. But anyways, that does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more tech videos just like this, and I'll catch up to you in the next video.